Have you ever felt like you were eating so healthy, and yet your lab results told a very different story? And you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? I want you to imagine this. Instead of forcing your kidneys to work harder and harder, every meal you eat could actually become a kind of relief, a way for your kidneys to rest and recover. It sounds small, but the truth is, it's those small choices you make in your kitchen every day that decide how long and how well you're going to live. Hello, my friends. I'm Dr. Anna Whitmore. For more than 2 decades, I've worked with patients over 50. And here's something I've learned. Sometimes the biggest difference in kidney health doesn't come from the hospital or from a prescription. It comes from those tiny decisions you make at home, right at your dinner table. There are certain proteins that look harmless on the surface, so familiar that we hardly think twice about them. But for kidneys that have been working nonstop for 50, 60, even 70 years, every bite can feel like another weight added on. And sometimes just one small change is all it takes to save yourself years of fatigue and struggle. So let's walk through these silent enemies together. Do you remember the taste of your very first hot dog? For so many of us, it's tied to summer ball games, backyard BBQs, family gatherings. It's quick, it's easy, it's comforting. But what often gets overlooked is the truth behind that bite. Hot dogs are loaded with salt, preservatives, and oxidized fats. A single hot dog can pack 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium, nearly a quarter of the daily recommended limit for older adults, which is about 2,500 to 2,000 milligrams. And it doesn't stop there. Hot dogs are also full of nitrites and phosphate additives, preservatives linked to blood vessel inflammation, higher cancer risk, and the accelerated decline of kidney function. I once had a patient tell me, "Doctor, I only eat hot dogs a few times a week. That can't be so bad, right?" But even that was enough for his lab results to show rising blood pressure, swelling in his legs, and unstable creatinine levels. I want you to picture this. Your kidneys are like a fine mesh filter, but every hot dog you eat is like throwing mud and chemicals into that filter. It still works at first, but over time, the holes tear, the fibers wear out, and one day it simply can't hold anymore. In America, steak has long been a symbol of strength, of energy, of vitality. A weekend dinner with a juicy, perfectly grilled steak on the table. Who wouldn't enjoy that? But for your kidneys, it's not a treat. It's a test. Even the leanest cut still carries a heavy load, about 5 to 7 grams of saturated fat per 100 grams of meat, 180 to 220 milligrams of phosphorus per serving, and purines that directly raise uric acid in your blood. According to the National Institutes of Health, eating red meat regularly increases the risk of gout by as much as 40 to 50% and also raises the risk of chronic kidney disease. I want you to imagine this every time you eat a steak, nothing dramatic happens right away. You feel fine, but eat it 3, 4 times a week, year after year, and it's like pulling away a little bit of your kidney strength each day. One of my patients once told me, "Red meat gives me energy." And he was right, but only for a while. The energy was short-lived. The price he paid was long nights of painful gout attacks and lab results showing his GFR, his kidney function, slowly slipping away. Chicken on its own is one of the healthiest sources of protein you can choose. But once it's turned into fried chicken, coated in flour, deep fried in oil, and heavily seasoned with salt. It goes from friend to foe. A single medium piece of fried chicken can hold 800 to 1,000 milligrams of sodium, plus 5 to 6 grams of trans fats and saturated fats. For a body that only needs about 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day, that's an enormous hit in just one bite. On the outside, it's golden, crispy, and delicious. But inside, it's a cocktail of sodium, frying oil, and unhealthy cholesterol. All of this fuel inflammation, raise LDL, the bad cholesterol, and force your kidneys to work overtime. Have you ever had fried chicken, then later felt weighed down, unusually thirsty, and noticed your legs a little swollen the next morning? That's your kidneys waving a red flag, telling you they've been pushed past their comfort zone. It's almost like asking an older, tired worker to suddenly pull an overloaded cart. They'll still do it, but at a cost. I know many people over 50 who still want to maintain their muscle, so they turn to whey protein isolate. They believe they're doing something good, maybe even reversing age in their bodies. But the truth is, that's an illusion. Whey isolate delivers an extremely concentrated dose of protein. Just one scoop can pack 25 to 30 grams. Sounds impressive, right? But here's the hidden costs. When your body processes that much protein all at once, it creates a heavy load of nitrogen waste. And guess what organ has to clear it out? Your kidneys. For older kidneys that have already worked for decades, that's like piling on an extra workload every single day. A study in the American Journal of Kidney Diseases showed that high intake of concentrated protein can accelerate the decline of kidney function in people already at risk. I had a patient who drank whey shakes daily because he thought it was cleaner than eating meat. But within just a few months, his creatinine levels went up and fatigue set in like a heavy fog. Once he stopped the whey and switched to gentler, natural sources of protein like egg whites and white fish, his labs began to improve, and so did his energy. Sometimes what looks modern and healthy on the surface ends up being the very thing that drags your body down. It sounds better than pork bacon, doesn't it? In fact, many products market turkey bacon as the healthy choice, but the reality is very different. Just a single strip of turkey bacon can contain over 500 milligrams of sodium, along with phosphate additives and nitrites, chemicals that fuel inflammation, raise blood pressure, and increase the risk of chronic kidney disease. According to the American Heart Association, eating processed meats like turkey bacon is directly linked to higher rates of hypertension and heart disease, two of the leading causes of kidney failure. I often call it a small bomb for your kidneys. One slice won't harm you right away, but eat it regularly and your blood pressure creeps up. Phosphorus starts to build in your blood, and little by little, kidney function slips away. So ask yourself this: if a food forces you to trade your blood pressure and kidney health, is it really worth it just for the familiar taste of a few strips of bacon in the morning? There's something I always remind my patients: the real enemies of your kidneys don't always come from strange or exotic foods. More often, they're right there in your own kitchen. The things we eat week after week, even day after day, without a second thought. And then one day, the blood work comes back different. Numbers aren't where they should be. And that's when the realization hits. The damage was coming all along from these small, familiar foods. So let's keep going together and take a closer look at a few more proteins that may look harmless on the surface, but in reality, they weigh heavily on your kidneys. Who doesn't love a can of tuna tossed into a salad or spread on a sandwich? It's quick, it's easy, and it's marketed as being rich in omega 3s. Sounds perfect, right? But the reality is a little less perfect. One small can of tuna can contain 250 to 300 milligrams of sodium, and some brands go as high as 400 milligrams. For older adults, where the daily recommended limit is only 1,500 to 2,000 milligrams, that single can already eats up nearly a quarter of your allowance. And sodium isn't the only problem. Canned tuna also carries the risk of mercury contamination. This heavy metal doesn't just harm your brain and nervous system, it also increases the toxic load in your blood. And guess which organ has to filter all of that out? Your kidneys, the body's very own filtration plant, already tired after decades of work. I once had a patient, a woman in her early 60s, who ate canned tuna regularly because she thought it was a cleaner option than red meat. But her labs told a different story: creatinine rising, blood pressure climbing. When we cut canned tuna from her diet, within just 3 months, her kidney function stabilized and her energy returned. Have you ever believed you were doing something good for your health only to discover it was the opposite? Canned tuna is a perfect example of how that can happen. Many people assume that plant-based automatically means safe. But when it comes to your kidneys, that isn't always true. Red lentils are a clear example of that. Just one small cup of cooked red lentils contains over 700 milligrams of potassium and 350 milligrams of phosphorus. For someone with healthy kidneys, the body can usually balance it out. But for someone with weakened kidneys, that much potassium alone can trigger dangerous heart rhythm problems, even life-threatening ones. I remember one patient, a man who was fully vegetarian. He ate red lentils almost every day. Over time, his potassium levels climbed so high that he often felt exhausted, lightheaded, and weak. Once we swapped out the lentils for quinoa and other lighter protein sources, his blood work improved, and so did his energy. Plant-based can be powerful, but as you can see, not every plant-based protein is truly kidney-friendly. Everyone can agree a slab of pork belly grilled until it's golden and crisp carries an aroma that's hard to resist. But beneath that tempting taste lies a heavy burden. It's packed with saturated fats and purines. When purines break down, they produce uric acid, the main culprit behind gout. And gout doesn't just cause painful, swollen joints, it also damages blood vessels and piles extra strain on your kidneys. At the same time, the saturated fats raise LDL, the bad cholesterol, which clogs your arteries and reduces blood flow to the kidneys, starving them of the oxygen and nutrients they need. I once had a patient admit to me, "Doctor, I know pork belly isn't good for me, but it just tastes so delicious." I looked at him and asked, "Delicious for a few minutes, but is it worth trading for a week of gout pain?" He stayed quiet for a moment, then simply nodded. Sometimes the hardest choices aren't about what we can eat, but about what we're truly willing to trade for our health. Fresh black beans cooked at home can be a heart-healthy choice. But canned black beans, that's a very different story. Even after rinsing them well, 1 cup can still hold up to 600 milligrams of potassium, along with far more sodium than most people realize. Together, that combination creates a perfect storm for your kidneys, swelling in the body, constant fatigue, and blood pressure that spikes out of control. I remember one patient, a woman who loved canned black beans because they were quick and convenient. After a while, she kept noticing swelling in her legs and a deep sense of exhaustion she just couldn't shake. Once she cut out the canned beans and switched to soaking and cooking beans at home, her symptoms eased and her energy began to return. It's a reminder that convenience often comes with a hidden price. And for your kidneys, that price can be steep. Cheddar, Parmesan, Gouda, they sound elegant, indulgent, even irresistible. But for your kidneys, these cheeses are silent enemies. Hard cheeses are packed with phosphorus and sodium. Just a small serving can hold 400 to 500 milligrams of phosphorus and 300 to 400 milligrams of sodium. For weakened kidneys, that extra phosphorus doesn't get filtered out. It builds up in the blood, where it settles into your bones and blood vessels. The result? Bones become fragile and prone to fractures, while the heart carries an even heavier burden. A study in the Journal of Renal Nutrition found that patients with chronic kidney disease who ate a high phosphorus diet, especially from processed sources like cheese, had a significantly higher risk of death from cardiovascular complications. Yes, a small piece of cheese can bring a moment of pleasure, but eaten often, it becomes a slow poison for both your kidneys and your heart. You see, it's not always the big, obvious things that hurt your kidneys. Sometimes it's the small, familiar foods that seem harmless. Canned tuna, red lentils, fatty pork, canned black beans, hard cheeses. Each one adds its own weight little by little until your kidneys can no longer keep up. And the most dangerous part, these foods don't harm you right away. You still eat them, still enjoy their taste, but all the while, your kidneys are quietly bearing the burden. And when they finally speak up, it's often too late. But here's the good news. If there are proteins that silently wear your kidneys down, there are also others that do the opposite. Proteins that nourish your body, maintain your muscle, support your immune system, all while giving your kidneys the rest they desperately need. I always tell my patients, you don't have to give up protein. You just have to choose more wisely. And the 6 proteins I'm about to share with you are exactly those wise choices, your true allies for stronger kidneys and a healthier life. Let's start with the simplest choice, egg whites. Did you know that egg whites are almost the purest source of protein nature has given us? No phosphorus, no cholesterol, no heavy purines, just complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids your body needs. One egg white has about 3.6 grams of protein, but only 10 milligrams of phosphorus. Compare that to a whole egg, which carries more than 80 milligrams. For someone with kidney concerns, that difference can mean everything. I remember one patient who told me, I tried replacing my morning red meat with steamed egg whites. After just a few weeks, I felt lighter, not drained after breakfast anymore. And sure enough, his lab work showed his phosphorus levels had dropped. I want you to imagine this every time you choose an egg white over a heavy piece of meat. It's like giving your kidneys a day off. They're still working, but in a smoother, lighter rhythm. Many Americans think of tofu as something bland, tasteless, and only for vegetarians. But the truth is quite the opposite. Tofu is a quiet warrior when it comes to protecting your kidneys. Just half a cup of tofu gives you about 10 grams of protein that's easy to digest, low in acid, and rich in natural anti inflammatory compounds like isoflavones. Unlike red meat, tofu doesn't increase pressure on the glomeruli, those tiny filters inside your kidneys. That means your kidneys get to rest, slowing down the wear and tear that drives disease forward. A study published in the Journal of Renal Nutrition found that patients with chronic kidney disease who replaced part of their animal protein with soy protein, tofu, soy milk had more stable GFR levels and reduced inflammation. Have you ever felt stuck wanting to get enough protein but afraid of pushing your kidneys too hard? Tofu might be the gentle answer you've been searching for. You don't need expensive fish to do your kidneys a favor. Tilapia, a humble, mild whitefish, is actually one of the best choices for anyone living with kidney concerns. A 100-gram serving of tilapia gives you about 22 grams of protein, but only 170 milligrams of phosphorus, far lower than red meat or organ meats. It's also very easy to digest, won't leave you feeling heavy, and creates much less inflammation in the body. In fact, because tilapia has a balanced ratio of omega 3 to omega 6 fatty acids, it may even help reduce chronic inflammation, one of the silent drivers behind kidney decline. I once encouraged a patient to swap out 2 steak dinners a week for steamed tilapia. Just a few months later, he told me, I feel lighter, almost like a weight has been lifted. After meals, I don't feel sore or sluggish. I feel comfortable. Sometimes the simplest foods bring the most relief. If tilapia is the simple gift from the sea, then quinoa is the quiet surprise from the fields. Quinoa is one of the very few plant foods that contains all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein, just like eggs or meat. A 1 cup of cooked quinoa gives you about 8 grams of protein along with 5 grams of fiber. What makes quinoa so special for kidney health is that fiber. It helps carry toxins out through the gut instead of leaving all the heavy lifting to your kidneys. That's a big difference, almost like having a friend step in to share the hardest part of the job. And unlike many other beans or legumes, quinoa is naturally lower in potassium and phosphorus, which makes it safer for people with weaker kidneys. I had a 70-year-old patient who struggled with red lentils because they pushed his potassium too high. Once we swapped a few meals a week with quinoa, his potassium levels settled and his energy improved in a way he hadn't felt in years. Sometimes the smallest grains can bring the biggest relief. People often ask me, Doctor, does this mean I have to give up meat completely? And my answer is always no. You don't have to give it up. You just have to choose the right kind and cook it the right way. Skinless chicken breast is a perfect example. It's lean, low in saturated fat, and easy to digest. A 100-gram serving of cooked chicken breast gives you about 30 grams of protein with virtually no added phosphorus as long as you prepare it at home without the additives you often find in processed meats. The key, though, is in how you cook it. Steam it, bake it, or pan-sear it lightly. Avoid deep frying or drowning it in salty sauces. Have you ever noticed how a simple, clean meal leaves you feeling lighter, more comfortable compared to something greasy? That's exactly the difference. A plain, well cooked chicken breast can do that for you. Nourishment without the burden. Finally, I want to mention salmon. Yes, salmon does have more phosphorus than tilapia, but it gives you something incredibly valuable, in return, a generous dose of omega 3s. These healthy fats help reduce inflammation, protect your heart, and indirectly support your kidneys. A 100-gram serving of salmon provides about 22 grams of protein and 2.5 grams of omega 3s, more than most white fish. Eating it just once or twice a week, prepared simply baked, steamed, or lightly pan-seared with a squeeze of lemon and some fresh herbs, can turn salmon into a kind of natural medicine for both your heart and your kidneys. A study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that adding fatty fish rich in omega 3s lowered the risk of chronic kidney disease progression and improved heart health in older adults. You might be thinking, but I've been used to eating red meat for years. Well, try giving yourself the chance to swap one steak dinner for a meal of steamed salmon. Trust me, your body will thank you later. I know, after hearing this list, you might feel like many of your favorite foods have been taken away, but I want you to see it differently. Nothing has been taken from you. You're simply making a trade, trading them for life, for more healthy years to enjoy. Have you ever felt tired, swollen, or watched your lab results decline even though you thought you were eating the right way? The hidden culprit could very well be the proteins we've talked about today. Here's what I want you to remember. Your kidneys don't need you to be perfect. They just need you to be wise. Every time you say no to a hot dog or a fatty cut of pork and instead choose something lighter and kinder, you're giving your kidneys a chance to stay with you, not just for another day, but for many more years. And believe me, the small choices you make today will decide how you get to live at 70, 80, even beyond. If this video gave you new knowledge or confidence in your journey to protect your kidneys, please give it a like so I know you're here. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you can join me in the next videos where I'll share more science-based but easy practical tips to help you live longer, stronger, and healthier. And if you have family or friends who are also concerned about their kidney health, share this video with them. Sometimes just one small piece of information at the right time can change an entire life.